Great question. I do commend Mark Ritchie for defending voter ID, which is in our party platform, that we would not support that. So I'm happy to see that we had someone in office that was defending our interests. Mark Ritchie is not running. I will be. I do intend to be a more business-oriented Secretary of State. I think we've got Minnesota is currently a national leader in how it conducts its elections, high voter participation, and we're very forward-thinking. We're modernizing at, I think, an appropriate pace. But on the businesses side, having worked at the Department of Revenue for 5 years, working downstream from the Office of Secretary of State, it was very apparent after speaking to tens of thousands of Minnesota businesses that there was not a proper channel. We hear Republicans talk about streamlining this process. We hear Democrats talk about streamlining this process. In order to know what to do for that, you really have to have been in the trenches. You have to be able to go to battle. You have to have that experience of, I was a part of that disconnect tens of thousands of times. So streamlining business will involve putting pressure on the other agencies. And I think when we've got all of our constitutional offices dominated by one party, we don't have that interaction that gives us the best solution for Minnesota. One thing I'm actively doing now is pushing the Minnesota Department of Revenue to provide a public access solution for verification of sales and use tax permits and exemption certificates. That's critical to know that purchasers are qualified to be exempt from tax and that sellers are registered in collecting sales tax rather than pocketing that amount of money. So serving on the businesses side is where I think Minnesota is lacking. We hear it all over the place that it's too complex, businesses struggle to get started, and that's been my experience and expertise.
Thank you.
I'll leave it.
Other questions?
Mr. Borgo.
What areas do you see Minnesota businesses really expanding, and how will you address that in your candidacy for Secretary of State office?
Great question. I think you're very familiar that there is a whole nother economy going on. As a guy that's worked with Minnesota Normal, who's familiar with the governor telling someone to go out and buy an illicit product on the street, there's an underground economy for that. There's also underground economies for those immigrants that have barriers to language. They want to comply. They're here. They want to be a part of our society, but it's really difficult for them to participate. Young people, reaching out to them, giving them an opportunity to start a business at a young age, to give them what they need to know. But the underground economy it's both a cost to the state in tracking them down for enforcement purposes, but it's also so much lost revenue. So I see tremendous opportunity in the Independence Party platform, especially when we're talking about legalizing marijuana. That's a whole range of businesses that are currently operating. We don't know how much or in what capacity, but it needs to be, inevitably, it will be a legal, regulated, and taxed product. And I think I can accelerate that change and make it seamless for those new businesses, whether it's the direct growers, whether it's their manufacturers, processors, distributors. We have so much opportunity in Minnesota, and that's going to be principal to my messaging: options and opportunity. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. So we get to the fun part for everyone got their cards ready? Again, everyone in favor of Bob Helland being our Secretary of State candidate with the endorsement of the Independence Party, please signify by raising your cards high.
From 3?
23. 46, what's our count?
47.
Do we have a no?
I'll get you by November.
Do we have an abstention? Seeing no no's and no abstentions, we will record this as a unanimous endorsement from the Independence Party of Minnesota for Bob Helland.